Hey there, folks. In this episode of This Week in Photo, it's all about photo yoga and how you can stay inspired and limber at the same time. That's coming your way next on TWiP episode 510. This is TWiP. All right, we are back for episode number 510 of This Week in Photo. This show is all about how do you get your groove back? How do you stay? We did a show on getting your groove back, but this one is diving deeper into the grooves of getting your groove back. And to help me get groovy again and limber with some photo yoga is Mr. Steve Brazill and Mr. Troy Miller. Hey, gentlemen, how you doing?
What's up, guys?
What is up? What is going on? This is it's gonna be a good show. We've been hammering on these notes for about a week or so we got a ton of stuff to go through. Before we do that, though, let's do just some quick housekeeping. Troy, you're on the road, man, right? You are.
I am.
Where are you at right now?
I am currently in Vacaville, which is somewhere between Napa, Sonoma, and Sacramento.
Okay,
up
you're
here
in my
hanging
hood.
out with some friends.
Yeah, awesome. And Steve Brazill, what about you, man? Where are you at?
I'm in Southern California as usual, and we actually have a little bit of rain, so it's kind of a special week for us.
You got rain down there. You know, we had hail in Sacramento a while back. Hail in California. It's not even.
Yeah.
Well,
it used to be not as so unusual. Now it's unheard of.
It's unheard
It's a
of.
unicorn.
It's a unicorn. It's a unicorn. And you got some stuff going on in your house there. I know you got the doors closed back there, but outside of that door, it's a construction zone. Right?
Yeah, it's been a construction zone for 6 weeks because we're doing some remodeling. And of course, we had a deadline of Friday because the contractor left for a 2-week vacation on Friday, but we didn't make the deadline.
Oh, bless him. Bless him. that's yeah, you've seen the pictures of my little disaster area here, right? So don't even
Your staircase from hell, yeah.
The staircase from hell, yeah. But it's coming together. It's coming together with no help from humans. Humans are an inhibitor in this process. All right.
Yes.
Enough about that. Let's dive into the show, man. The first thing I want to talk about is a story that Petapixel posted, and it's about the death of DSLRs. And I thought, what better show to do this on than with two folks that are DSLR shooters, my two good friends here. Steve Brazill, I'm going to start with you, man. So what do you think? So you read this article that Petapixel posted, right? Which we'll link to.
I did read the article that Petapixel posted.
And their hypothesis essentially was that in the future, the very near future, the photography world will consist of mobile phones or smartphones for everybody. A level up from that, I would argue more than a level up, but a level up from that is the Micro Four Thirds camera. Then I think they say you're going to jump all the way to the larger cameras. What do you think? Do you subscribe to that?
And let's qualify this whole conversation. The guy who wrote the article, I think it was a guy, is a German street photographer. So his perception, however vast it may be, is still going to be colored by the fact of what he shoots is on the street. Mm-hmm. So a couple of things. His article is very heavy on market share and that DSLRs are clearly on a decline market share wise. Mirrorless cameras like the Sony stuff are clearly on the rise market wise, but there's more to it than market share. Let me qualify this. I'm not totally disagreeing with him by any means, right?
Yeah.
There will be a day, I believe, where everything's going to be mirrorless. That's where we're going. That's what the technology is leading us to. I just don't think that we're as far along in certain areas as he would claim. For example, if you're a mechanic, you might use Snap-on tools. Snap-on tools doesn't have huge market share. That doesn't mean they're dying.
Yeah.
It just means that they're not in Home Depot and they're not a prosumer or consumer brand.
Right.
So there's a lot more to this than market share, than frame rate, than a lot of those things, right? For me, and I know for Troy too at weddings, it's also an issue of, can you focus quickly, lock it in, and track somebody at 3,200, 6,400, 10,000 ISO. Mm-hmm. And in my experience so far, some of the mirrorless cameras are fantastic at focusing quick, tracking not just a face, by the way, but tracking an eye. It's amazing what they do. But to me, they're not there with the top of the line bodies. I will add one other thing, though. The show I shot last weekend, there were a ton of photographers that were shooting Sonys. and I quizzed them to death on it.
Mm-hmm.
They love it.
Yeah.
It is working for them in a concert environment now. So we're close. One other friend of mine shoots for movie sets. He's the stills photographer for The Bachelor and a number of other TV movie type things. Well, if you want a DSLR, silent mode's not silent enough. So you have to put what's called a Zeppelin around your camera that keeps it quiet on the set. With a mirrorless, he doesn't have that issue.
Yeah. Yeah. You can
so the future's really bright. I just think certain areas we're still in a DSLR world for at least another year or two.
And I think I agree with you, but I don't see DSLRs going away anytime soon. But you could say the same thing about film cameras. Like film cameras aren't going away anytime soon, but they've been relegated to the sidelines and niched out by digital. I'm wondering if
it's a fad still, and like vinyl is a fad. There's a lot of people into vinyl records.
Yeah, but this is very small. It's a very small tangent. Troy, what about you, man? Do you foresee a time when you're gonna just drop your DSLR into the trash and go buy a mirrorless camera?
You know, I've tried, and I've actually hoped, and I bought into the hype a little bit that, you know, the Sonys and some of these mirrorless cameras can focus as good as my D5 and my D850, and they're just not there. It's a different technology. The way that they focus, it's different, and I'm sure that there are some Sony people out there going, "Oh, no, it's not true." But it is. And a lot of the guys that are saying like, oh, this focus is better than my DSLR, they're going from a 5D Mark IV or you know, like a D750 or something that's not the what is it, the Canon, the 5D Mark IV, I mean the 1DX Mark II, or in my case the Nikon 5D5. Those things focus so fast in low light and they nail it so quickly that I'm not seeing any of the other gear do that. So that's where I'm stuck.
Yeah.
If the mirrorless could do that, if the next version of the Sony could beat the focus in low light, then I'm down, because I love that stuff. But
well, and Troy, you're a Sony shooter, so I'm curious because Trevor brought something up in the chat room, and that is, he says, I think the A7 III just changed the game, which I agree. The A7 III is head and shoulders above the two, but he said it's got the A9 focusing system, which competes with the D5 and the 1DX2. Now, you've shot that camera. Does it compete with your D5 for you, for what? Because the problem is a lot of people say these things, but they say them in the world they shoot, such as street photography or landscapes. Does it work for you? Does that A7 III compete with your D5 in weddings?
No, it doesn't. And that's very specifically in my environment. So for example, I'm on a dance floor. I've got a lot of lights flashing. They're backlit. My D5 and the Sony A9 and the 7 III will not do this. It will not reach through the crowd, grab the face I want, focus and fire. It will hunt. And that's just the way that it works. And I've tried them. I've taken them out and shot them. That's my environment. I've talked to Sony techs, had them set the cameras up for me. It's just the way that they focus. That's the struggle that I have. Are they close? They're very close. I'm splitting hairs when we come to this point.
But that's the thing. I mean, but that's part of what I wanted to get to in this conversation, and it's and you brought it up, Steve. Just the whole idea that the author of this article is writing this from his perspective, the perspective of a street photographer. But I would argue those genres of photography, street photography, concert photography, are niches when you look at if you zoom out and look at the overall group of people that are coming into photography. If the metrics that we get from This Week in Photo when we do our surveys, it's always landscape photographers and everybody else, you know.
Right.
It's always
but
like
wedding photography that Troy does is not a niche.
But if you skew it towards business, yeah, of course. If you skew the numbers towards business, then wedding is going to have a spike in there. You know, people that are actually making money, it'll probably top out with wedding photographers. But if you look at what the marketers and what the camera manufacturers need to build to, they need to build to the biggest, most wealthy audience that they can, and that's going to be the affluent people that are interested in shooting landscapes. And if you look at it through that lens, then, you know, it's the phone and maybe mirrorless. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I got to jump on your phone comment, because that, to me, the mirrorless, when you buy bodies, is gonna, it's hands down. I mean, let's cut to the chase. Mirrorless is going to be the thing. Electronic viewfinders, all the issues are gone. And he mentions this in the article too. All the lag issues are gone. Electronic viewfinders are awesome. Silent shooting is awesome. For pros using bodies, at some point, everybody's going to be using mirrorless. But right now, today, smartphone cameras, especially if you use a good third-party app where you have good manual controls, or that's all I used in Italy and France.
Yeah.
And I got pictures I'm really happy with.
Right? Yeah. Right. And and it's only it's 2018, right? So you just tack on another 5 years. Right? Where are we going to be, assuming that the planet's still here? But, you know, in 5 years, where is this technology going to be at? You know, and will we be having the same conversation about, hey, do we really need any of these extra cameras? Because my phone, if we're still calling them phones by then, my phone can do all this magic stuff and it's with me all the time. And, you know, why do I need to spend all this extra money on something else? You know, granted, I know chat room and everyone else is going to say optics, of course. With a small camera, you're not going to get bokeh, and you know you can only get so much light in there, so it's never going to be fast as a larger sensor camera. Of course, I get that, but again, back to the largest swath of people that these manufacturers want to address to make money so they can stay in business. It's always going to be those people. I don't know. I mean, I don't want any of these cameras to go away. I want competition to stay going, right? I don't know.
Well, you know, all the gear that's out there, it's all specific to a use. And I think any of us could argue, oh, this is such an amazing camera in the environment that I work in. I mean, I live and breathe my Nikon gear, live and breathe by it. But I'm on vacation. I went to Hawaii. I travel a little bit, for those that know me. I take my Sony gear. I don't take my Nikon gear. I take my Sony gear.
Yeah.
I have frustrations with it. You talked about startup. The A9 and the A7R Mark III do not start up as fast as my D5.
Yeah.
They're quicker, but they're not as fast. So for me as a wedding shooter, that bugs me. For everything else that I shoot, whether it's surfers in Hawaii or it's traveling, shooting landscape like today,
your fine art stuff,
I dig the Sony for that. So the idea that this stuff is so contentious and people argue about specs, I would just say, just get over it.
Yeah.
Go buy the gear you like,
right,
and get out there and shoot.
Right.
Doesn't matter what lens you're using. Doesn't matter what body you have. Go create something. Just don't get hung
Frederick,
up on it.
I have a question for Frederick.
Yeah.
Because you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, but Sigma announced that a number of their art primes are for the Sony mount natively now. And to me, that completely legitimizes also that platform.
Yeah, I agree. What's your question?
So, well, I'm just saying, don't.
That sounded rhetorical. I don't know.
It's more of a statement than a question. No, I'm just saying.
I have a question
don't you
for you.
Think
the sky
in
is
many
blue.
Ways, no, but in many ways, don't you think when a third-party company like the Sigma Art Series lenses comes out for a specific, very proprietary mount like the Sony?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Don't you think that also is going to accelerate the move?
No,
to
absolutely.
Sony mirrorless?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it also legitimizes them. But, looking at it from the other end, you skate to where you think the puck is going to be, right? So Sony clearly has momentum and they are not showing any signs of slowing down on anything that they're doing. So if I was in the business of building these cameras, I'm going to be like, okay, yeah, there's this Sony sort of rabid fanboyism, and deservedly so, is a thing. And I'm going to skate to where the puck is. I'm going to start building lenses for that platform. Right? I mean, that's just good business when you do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see that Sigma's doing that. I mean, I use a couple other Art Series pieces of glass and they're fantastic. And for them to make an investment like that in Sony, it's amazing. You go to the trade show and it used to be Canon, Nikon. Then Sony would be way in the back and Fuji would be over here. And now it's Canon, Nikon, Sony.
Well, speaking of Canon, Nikon, Sony, specifically of Nikon, Sony, someone in the chat room, I think it was Trevor, but somebody in the chat room was saying the game changer, the game changing move would be when a Nikon or a Canon make a serious move into eating Sony's lunch, and arguably Panasonic and Fuji and all these the mirrorless players there. Is that what it's going to take? I mean, for you guys, if, like, for example, Steve, we'll start with you. If or Troy, we'll start with you. If Nikon decides to jump into this business, or this in earnest, because they've made some inroads before, but never anything substantive. If they decide to make that move, are you jumping in, or do you need to wait for an F-mount camera in order to jump in?
That last part's a good question. I mean, for me, if Canon really, I mean, they just came out with the M50, and I played with it at WPPI, and it's kind of a cool little camera. It's a little bit smaller than the Sony body, but they're not out in the wild yet. And the Sony's out in the wild. And here's the thing. I don't trust at this point that Canon and Nikon can innovate at a pace that can compete. Think about how many Sony bodies came out in the time it took Canon to go from a 5D Mark III to a 5D Mark IV.
I know. It's ridiculous. I know.
And the Canon presidents admitted, oh yeah, we're not being innovative enough. Well, but I don't know that you're going to change that. I just really don't. I have to admit, for me as a diehard Canon fan, I love Canon. I own Canon glass. I'm starting to wish that I had a Sony to play with at concerts. It's because of their pace of innovation, right? It's, to me, part of it is, okay, if it's not perfect now, I can see they're going there.
Yeah. And Jerry in the chat room, Jerry Wong says, isn't Canon planning to launch a full frame mirrorless soon? And I did see rumors to that effect.
That's a rumor to all we know, though.
It is. Yeah. I mean, hopefully it's true, but yeah, they need to, I want to see a system, I don't want to just see a market test of, hey, here's a mirrorless camera with some half-ass features on it. And, we know it's going to fail, but we're really focused on this stuff over here. But here's a mirrorless for all you people that think we're not innovative, right? I want to see them double down and bet some serious money, a couple billion, on mirrorless and build something to crush the other guys, both Nikon and Canon. They have the resources, the glass works, the built-in fan base to build something that can seriously damage all the other players and give Sony a run for their money. Why don't they do it? I don't understand it.
But do they need to, though? That's really the question. Is the mirrorless market the only market to go into? And I would say that just like, during the time of the painters, when they saw photography coming in, they're like, oh my God, this is, painting is going to go away. This is not a true art. Is mirrorless really the only way for us to go? And I would say that the DSLR is going to have power for a long time until technology catches up and then overwrites it. And then it's an obvious choice. Right now,
are we there now? Though? We're not there yet. We're not.
No.
Oh, you're talking about focusing speed and low light, right?
It's low light. It's how you can take any of the mirrorless cameras, turn them on, and try to start firing. Yeah. They're not going to fire as fast as the Canon 1DX Mark II or the D5 or the D850. They just
you mean from boot time?
I mean, I'm talking you're coming up, you flip it on, you start firing. That little bit of lag to me in my industry matters. I know shooting concerts with you, that was a huge struggle, was trying to get that camera ready. And I shot the last Warped Tour all Sony, and I loved shooting it that way. But, the face tracking and everything was fantastic. That was so amazing that the Sony would track the face
during the day. As
soon as it got soft light, I'm done.
Frederick said something that's interesting to me, and that is, why doesn't Canon just throw billions at this? They can do it, they can afford it, and just go after Sony. But Sony's not small.
That's true.
It's not there yet. I don't think it's ready yet. I think that Sony is innovating, and when it's ready, when the technology has done things that surpass DSLR beyond example, then it'll just be a natural transition, and DSLR will go away, and nobody needs mirrors in there anymore. And we'll all have adapters. We'll all be using each other's lenses, and it'll be a happy moment. It'll be good, and we'll all rejoice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Steve, you say Sony's not small. They're not small. Oh, sorry. Yeah, bring that up again. Bring them up.
We all rejoice.
Troy,
Cheers to the technology.
Yeah. Pour some on the ground. For the DSLRs. No, I'm kidding. Well, I'm saying, Steve, you said Sony's not small. They are not small. However, the Sony digital imaging team is a unit within the giant Voltron that is Sony. It's not the whole company. So, even
But
though
I
they're probably I would argue, I don't know for sure, but I would argue aside from PlayStation and gaming, they're probably one of the most successful divisions at Sony, but they're still a division of Sony. So
Agreed.
yeah, so they have a budget. They don't have infinite dollars, and the argument is being a group within a larger organization like Sony versus the entire company of Nikon saying, okay, there's egg on our face. We are backed into the corner like the rabbit from Monty Python, and we need to go. We need to go after the jugular.
Run away!
We need to go for it or die, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's me. That's because there seems like we've been hearing this refrain for years, like a decade. Like, oh, just wait till next year. Oh, Sony came out with this A7 thing. That's never gonna be successful. Wait till next year because Nikon's gonna come out with something at insert next trade show here, right?
And something that we have to, I think we could all agree on is that the competition between these three, including Panasonic and Olympus, is what we're benefiting from. I mean, I think it's amazing that Sony is pushing the mirrorless market, and then the Micro Four Thirds market is growing. There's a huge following there in the DSLR market. I'm glad this is all happening because that means we, the photographers, we have more tech to choose from, and it's better.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the best cameras that I have ever shot with in my entire life, and I shoot every day, and I'm just amazed at what I'm getting.
That's really the thing is competition in the end.
Right.
If I have to sell all my Canon gear and buy Sony or Panasonic or Fuji, that I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The key is that Sony innovating so quickly. It's one thing if Sony just innovated, right? They're innovating at a pace, and Panasonic is innovating at a pace. These people are moving so quick that you got a CEO of a major standard camera brand to admit they're not being innovative enough.
Yeah.
And that's going to push Nikon, and that's going to push Canon to either put up or shut up.
Yeah.
And we, like Troy says, we benefit from them.
But I keep going back to it. We've been at that put up or shut up state for a long time, and they've only done half of that, right? So, and it ain't putting up. So, how much longer are we there yet? How much longer do we have? What needs to happen? Like, what needs to happen for these other companies to say, you know what, let's double down on this market? Does it need to be someone who wasn't necessarily successful in that space doing something innovative and then becoming wildly successful? Read Sony. Right? Does it need,
right.
Nikon, to go on Nikon, get on Nikon's case for a second. They even failed with their 360 camera. You remember the 360 camera they launched about a year or so ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
With all that hubbub at whatever trade show they launched it at. It was the first 4K or one of the most affordable 4K 360 cameras. I bought that thing. I bought into it. I could not even get it to pair to my phone. I literally, and I'm reasonably tech savvy. I could not get it to pair to my phone. I had to send it back. And I'm like, and I wasn't the only one. Because obviously when something doesn't work, you go online, you find out, hey, am I the only one? Not the only one. Everyone was having the same issue. So if you can't execute on something like that, then, to me, it speaks to if photography remains one of the fastest growing hobbies in the United States, at least. I'm not sure globally. But if new people are coming into this space all the time and they ask the question, okay, which camera should I buy? Right? Can you guys, both of you, and I'll put this to both of you guys, can you both in earnest right now say, go buy a Nikon or go buy a Canon, new person, as your first camera? Notwithstanding what they're shooting, like if they're just shooting their kids' first steps, yeah, you're going to guide them somewhere else. But if they have aspirations to do what you do, would you guide them to the camera system that you shoot now? Or would you tell them to go get a Sony or some other kind of camera?
Well, I would, because I shoot two systems. So, you know what? That's a really good question. And there's a good friend of mine, and he just switched from Canon to Sony on my recommendation and a couple of my other friends, because he was ready to step up his game and buy some pro gear. And honestly, even as much as I will argue with anybody that the D5 and the 850 focus a little bit faster and shoot whatever, if I was buying gear today, I would go buy the Sony A7R Mark III and the A7 III. That's what I would buy, without a doubt, because it does 95% of what I want. And I think that Sony is innovating faster than the other two. And I want to be on that track.
Yeah. All right, Steve, I'll give you a chance to answer that really quickly, because keeping us honest is our chat room, and Rob Wagner's in there, and he's telling us that we've gone on for 25 minutes and haven't talked about the main topic, which is very true. Thank you. That. Which is why we have Robert, a chat room.
Thank you for keeping us on track. and also the other one I found interesting was Ruth, who said, really a lot of the innovation is happening in the 4/3 space. But But the answer, quick, so that we can move on, for me is, not only would I recommend it, if I'm buying a camera today, I'm walking in and buying an A7R Mark III. Hands down, I'm done. I buy the Sony glass, I walk away. I wouldn't even today, if I was a new photographer and could afford it, by the way, because the price point's different, right? You can still get an entry-level Canon or Nikon cheaper than an A7R Mark III. But for me, I'd walk in and buy that body in an instant and be done with it.
Yeah, love it. All right, let's move on to our topic du jour, and that's stretching your creativity or photo yoga, right? So this is I think a really important topic for lots of photographers.
Did you want to touch on that Adobe thing or not?
No. Well, I can touch on it. Adobe's raising their prices on the cloud, but it's not affecting people who are subscribed to the photography cloud. So.
Boom, done.
So if you want to learn more, head over to adobe.com, but they're raising their prices, but it's not affecting most of us. So, okay. So stretching your creativity, the idea behind the topic of this, and we all three of us collaborated on this before we decided to make this a topic for the show. And that is, it can come in many forms. The dulling of your blade, whether it's your creative blade or your inspiration blade or whatever, it may come from use, just like a regular blade, or it just maybe come from, you're just tired of, you just lose your oomph for shooting. You don't want to go out and shoot anymore. You don't want to share stuff anymore. You just feel kind of like a half inflated balloon or something. So how do you, let's start with that piece of it, and that's the inspiration. Steve, I'm going to start with you. On the inspiration side of it, or sort of rejuvenating your passion for photography, you got your camera bag sitting over there in the corner gathering dust. It needs 30 firmware updates. You haven't done them.
You don't know me.
And you don't care, right? So what do you do to kick yourself in the butt to get going?
For me, it's a combination of experiment and inspiration. Those to me are the two things. I go out with Troy. I don't shoot landscapes, right? And on Behind the Shot, I talk to people that shoot landscapes. I don't shoot portraits. I go out with Troy and I shoot stuff that I don't normally shoot. That pushes my envelope a little bit, causes me to see things differently. Like when we were at WPPI, Troy and I were planning on going down and walking the strip, because Troy has this thing that he does. We'll be walking the strip and he'll stop and he'll look at a shadow and he'll put his camera up to his eye. Now, Steve is thinking, that's a shadow. Troy, when it's done and he processes it, it is a beautiful piece of fine art. and I'm totally serious. I don't see it and I want to, right? So part of the way that I do, reinvigorate myself, as it were, is I'll go out with somebody that shoots something different than me. And if I have a question, I can ask them, what is it you're doing with this landscape? How are you blurring this water at the beach? That type of a thing. The other thing for me is Creative Live. I'm a big, huge fan of Creative Live. I just had Kenna Klosterman on Behind the Shot recently, and I'll give you a code, by the way. She gave us a code for Behind the Shot and TWiP viewers.
Oh, good. Yeah.
20% off at Creative Live. And when you go to Creative Live, if you have their app on your iOS device or Android device, you can actually watch one lesson a day. So one class might be 20 lessons. You can get one lesson for free a day. So 20 days, you're done with that class.
Yes.
And then if you want to buy it, buy the thing. They have great content. Kelby One, you and I have talked about this before, but the new Masterclass. Masterclass is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lynda.com. And then Troy and I are really big on the last one that I'm going to say. and that is local photography groups. Get involved in a local photography group where when you walk into a room, you immediately have something in common with 100 other people or 20 other people that are already there. You already like photography. They do lessons, they do workshops, they do walk-arounds. Again, it just kind of pushes your envelope a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So education, if I can grok what you're saying, and I'm using my word grok. I'm from Silicon
You've
Valley.
been fighting to get that in. I know.
I'm Silicon
He
Valley. Come on.
explained that to me earlier. Like he used it and he was so proud. You should have seen him.
I like the word grok. It fits. Come on. Sound off in the chat room if you know what the word grok means.
It's another T-shirt idea for you, Frederick. I'm telling you.
All right. So Steve, it sounds like you're saying education mostly, right?
It's education. I mean, I like reading photography news. I'm a tech geek. I like reading photography news. But yeah, it's education. Like a good example, Scott Kelby has a blog, but every Wednesday is Guest Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And some random amazing photographer writes a blog post for him. And it's not necessarily educational. Sometimes it's inspirational. Sometimes it's just what was the Robin Williams movie where he was a teacher? Dead Poet Society. It's that stand on a desk and see the world from a different view type of thing.
Yeah.
Those type of things just inspire me and remind me, and I'll give that code out because I have it in front of me.
Okay. And we'll put it in the description for the episode as well. Troy, what about you, man? So and this is just the beginning of this conversation, but the same question goes for you. Inspiration, where do you find it?
It's funny when you're explaining all those issues that you have when you're struggling with your creativity is me about every 7 years. I mean, like on the clock. I mean, and my wife who shoots with me, we do this full time together. She's I'll be complaining. She's like, but your work is great. It looks good. The brides love it. And I'm like, yeah, but I've been to the beach like 47 times. I'm tired of going to the beach. Can we go to a barn somewhere? And really how I get out of that is because, well, one, I love what I do. I mean, I love what I shoot. I love weddings. I love the challenge of them all. And for me, it's just getting out and shooting. Like this week, I'm up here hanging out with friends. We're going in the truck. We're driving through back roads. I'm like, oh, stop real quick. And I want to photograph the tree. That to me is where my inspiration comes from. That and teaching. I'm not a huge media follower. The podcasts and the vlogs and that. I mean, Steve introduced me to the TWiP network and your podcast. And that's really the first time that I ever got involved in this type of community. So I don't really have a lot of outside sources like that.
Yeah.
I do like to follow Julian Cost and I follow her on Instagram because her work is amazing, and a couple others, for little learning things. But
you don't follow her in person though, right?
No. She flies everywhere. Weird. She flies everywhere. And for those that know me, I'm not going to get on the plane.
Oh, really? Interesting.
But the inspiration for me is I just go out and shoot. So many people get caught up in the tech. And I know that we all love the tech, but take your tech outside, go walk down the beach, take pictures of rocks and bugs and grass and light things on fire. This afternoon, we were in the front yard lighting dandelions on fire.
Very cool.
Let's just say, Frederick's going to say it, but I'm going to beat him to it. Don't try this at home. It's being done by professionals.
Thank you. You can put professionals in quotes.
What are you doing?
That's my inspiration, though, as I go out and I shoot.
In California, lighting things on fire. We're practically the desert, right?
See, they're on fire.
Oh, look at that.
He's killing me.
And then the neighbor's cat comes over, and it's a
don't tell me,
orange tabby cat.
Wait, did it start out as orange, or was it orange after you got done with it?
No, it's good. And then the other thing is there's two parts of the education side. If you're already a pro, if you're already experienced, if you already have a lot of skills to share, go teach. Go find a local organization and teach. You'll find that teaching often makes you qualify where you are, and they ask questions that you that you may have to actually think it through to explain it, like depth of field and bokeh, and why'd you shoot 1.8 with that lens? Why not 1.4? But if you're not at that level, find the group like Steve said, and find a mentor. Photography is one of those things where you can learn the best by finding a mentor, finding somebody to walk you through their vision, and it's so vast.
Yeah.
And that's my thing is we're very involved in education. We're very involved in doing programs, and then getting out and shooting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just one part of it. But what about if we guide people towards, like the stretching part of the conversation is get outside of your genre, right? I mean, with that, because I found that helps me a lot, because you get stuck in one genre and it becomes muscle memory in a lot of ways. The things that you're shooting, you're like, okay, I know how to do this. Boom, boom, boom. You're shooting models. Okay, turn your head that way. Okay, arch your back. Let me change the background. I'm going to use this lens because I know exactly what it does to my background. You get into it becomes mechanical in a lot of ways, and the only way to shake that up is to take yourself out of that comfort zone and drop yourself behind enemy lines creative wise and say, okay, now I'm going to go shoot a concert. So Steve, if somebody says that, they're like, I've been shooting models my entire life. Now I want to stretch and shoot concerts. Is that a way to become better and to sort of reinvigorate yourself, or is it a way to crush your spirit?
No, it is a way. Okay,
it's a little bit of both.
I was just gonna say it's a little bit of everything. I'm so glad you brought that up, because Troy, can I tell him about the first time you went with me?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I was gonna do that too.
So Troy is an accomplished wedding photographer. In all honesty, I'm not saying this because he's sitting in front of me. He's a longtime friend, and I honestly think he's one of the best wedding photographers I've ever met. And I took Troy. It's very difficult. Usually I only get one photo pass to a concert, but I managed to get two, and I took Troy to a concert, and it was 3 days grace. And here's a guy who knows his gear, right? This is a guy who can pick his camera up off his hip and immediately just start shooting. And he left so frustrated. And so I'm not saying you should go get frustrated, right?
I think you should. I do think that the frustration was one of those things for me. I went, holy crap, I can't just nail anything I want to shoot.
But you also said to me, I get it now. I need to do it again, right? He had trouble the first time, but he knew immediately, I need to go do it again. And so what I would say to people is, there's a bar or a nightclub that has bands in whatever town you're in. Go look at the class I've got on TWiP School. I mentioned this because learning to shoot at low light, don't use a flash, understand microphone stands coming out of people's heads is bad, right? Will push you beyond belief. I think it's great to do that. And for me, that's landscape photography, same thing. But I honestly believe wedding and concert photography are two of the most challenging types of photography. Also fight photography, which I also do, are two of the most amazing things that you can do to push yourself. But there's one other thing I thought of, I got to throw out that Troy's going to agree with. You've started doing TWiP critiques, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in the group that Troy and I are a member of, we do image competitions. And Troy got me into judging image competitions. And I say this at every meeting that I MC for this group. I firmly believe one of the best ways for you to improve your photography is put your work out there, get into these local groups, and enter image competitions. Because even when a judge, which happens to me regularly, basically says, oh my God, that's the worst shot I've ever seen.
Oh God.
And Troy will vouch.
It happens.
People have said that. As you're in your head going, you're an idiot, I don't agree with you, you're still thinking, but it's fascinating. He saw my image that way. I never imagined somebody could see it that way. You really want to inspire yourself to do better and become better? Enter not WPPI, not PPA, a local image competition. It will change the way you shoot.
Yeah, but is that the only way? Like a competition? Because that, especially after listening to you, Steve, you're going to be like, we want people to continue shooting. We don't be like, hey, I finally got my groove back and I got this image that I worked on forever and I feel like it's the best image that I could possibly make of this subject. I'm going to submit this. And you submit it and some judge says, this is crap. Right?
Take it, Troy. You defend it.
No, it's a way. It's a way. And I will say that putting your image up in front of judges that are full-time working photographers, or finding a group of other photographers that will give you an honest critique, is the only way.
Yeah.
Because social media is that it doesn't count. That's not real feedback on your imagery. Find somebody that shoots that you appreciate, that you respect, and let them tear your image apart. You got to be thick skinned, but let's face it, right? If you're going to go and you're going to go walk down a path down the beach, and you're going to go find this sunset, and you're going to spend $1,000 on a tripod, and you're going to go spend $5,000 on a camera, why wouldn't you want to have the skills when you're there to look at that and go, I should probably pick up that piece of trash, as opposed to just leave it there.
Right.
Right. I mean, maybe you wouldn't even see it, because a judge is gonna pick on you for that, and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, if I don't fix that now, they're gonna pick it up later. That drives me.
Troy.
Yeah.
Tell the story of the seaweed shot.
No.
Other people,
you can't put it out there and not say it.
Okay. Come on. Other people looking at your work, not even in a competition, putting yourself out there. It does no good for your images to be on your computer, right?
Right. No,
Troy, tell the story of the seaweed shot.
So in context of
this is going to be good.
Stretching yourself, right? Like stretching your creativity and learning. And this is exactly what we're talking about. As I like to shoot a lot of landscape, because landscape for me is one of the more challenging things. I see people in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to go travel, and I like to shoot landscapes, and I photograph this really amazing seaweed shot. You can see some of my
kind of amazing
at spicyjello.com. And we print it 60 inches on acrylic. Beautiful, big,
Fuji Flex acrylic.
Right. It's gorgeous. And one of my friends walks up and goes, what is that? Laying on top of the seaweed is like this ticket or a piece of paper or something. And you can't unsee it forever. And here's this shot we spent, a couple grand on. You can either be mad at yourself, mad at the person who found it, but in reality, it's a learning moment. That's a critique. It's always a critique.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. What about being inspired by others' work and using that? And I'll put it in the context of for This Week in Photo, we have an account on Shutterstock to use images for our thumbnails and whatever random projects we might need an image for. But I find myself going through Shutterstock, and they're not a sponsor of this episode, but I find myself going through Shutterstock and finding inspiration. There's some ridiculously cool shots in there, and it's keyword based, right? So you just go in there and say, you know what, I want black and white, fine art, whatever, boom, and then you'll get a grid of images or multiple pages of images that fit that. Then from there you can say, yeah, I want to kind of try that, but with a little bit of that, and then you sort of build this together and go from there. Does that work for you guys? Do you do that, or do you look at magazines or 500px or something like that?
It doesn't really work for me, because that's somebody else's best compared to what I look at, which is my worst images, right? I'm always looking at my images, and the stuff that's up there is always somebody's best. I have certain individuals that I follow on Instagram, and I like them because I love their artwork. Renee Robin, perfect example. She's in the TWiP Pro community. I love to see her work. I can't do that. The way she shoots and the compositing and stuff, but I see the imagery and I'm just amazed by it. So if I'm out and I'm shooting a scene, this would be great to get the person higher on the rock and silhouette against the sky, because that might be a little bit of her style. That inspires me. I'm a little bit different in the way that I have learned photography. When I first started, I literally cut myself off from everything photography, and it was just me. It was just me in this void, being creative and creating, because I have a lot of people that I mentor and we teach, and it's part of our organization. And I think they're flooded with all these ideas, and they feel like, well, I can't do that, or I don't understand what that is, but I should be doing that. And I would just say, yeah, go look and go sample, but maybe for a time, cut yourself off and just take your camera, go in your backyard and go shoot something.
Yeah.
Go edit it and let somebody look at it.
Because you can
do it every day.
You get mired in that analysis paralysis and overwhelm, and you end up doing nothing. Right. So, or the fear. And that's why I go back to that judge thing. That's frightening, right? You go back to the judge thing where you put your best foot forward and then you feel like you're at the level to enter competition, and you enter that competition and then you get crushed, so.
Well, but that's what critiques are for. That's why we do critiques before every image competition. We have a critique, because then you don't have, it's the score that scares people, right? People commenting doesn't bother you. It's the fact that there's this finite score, but there really is no finite score. I have shots that are still my favorite that got absolutely ripped up in an image competition. But going back to your original question, inspiration is inspiration wherever you get it. So on the bookshelf back here, when I used to do a lot of graphic design work, I have tons of graphic design. There was a thing they used to do, the print book, that was all these graphic design things. And I'd look in them for inspiration of what I wanted to do. If you go look through 500 pics, you're going to find one of the rare places. You're going to find beautiful flower shots, right? Flower shots where the flower looks more beautiful than it did in nature. If that inspires you, take it where you can, but don't emulate, right? So there's an old lesson that I heard of that photography teachers used to do, and that is, they'd send their class to like a high school parking lot that's just nothing but asphalt and parking stops, right? The concrete parking stop. And for an hour, they'd say, go make 10 images.
Yep.
Good images. Now, when you start thinking, you walk into a parking lot and go, it's asphalt and it's concrete parking wheel stops and it's light poles.
Yeah.
Okay. Look beyond that. Either look wider, look smaller, look down, look up. Push yourself. Here's another one. A friend of mine shoots concerts on stage in front of 100,000 people for big bands. He uses a manual focus lens because he feels that it pushes him. Now, personally, I think
another addition to that is stop looking at the back of your cameras. And I know that
that's heresy.
Well, you need to look on occasion, okay? Yeah. But you should already know what your gear is capable of. You should already know if you point your camera at that bride against that wall, that sky's going to overexpose, then you got to bring your exposure up a stop or two. You should already pre-visualize that thing. Ansel Adams was brilliant. There was some talk of him in the chat channel over here, which is great because I think he would embrace all this. But Ansel was one of those guys who brought forth pre-visualizing your work. And I think that's really good for creativity as well, is looking at something and thinking, how am I going to get that? How am I going to make that shot work? And then that will guide you to what kind of gear you need. What kind of lighting do you need? Do you need a tripod? Do you need a wide angle lens? Does it, many years ago, I went to a photography workshop and we went down to the beach and we just hung out and kumbaya and everybody was friendly and we were all inspirational. But one of the things that we came away from that was this term of feeding the artist. If you're a creative, eventually you just sort of run out of ideas, and going to an art gallery is an amazing way to get inspiration, at least for me. I think it was Ruth or somebody in the chat asked that question. Paintings are wonderful inspiration because to know that the painter intentionally put that bird in that location, painted that level of contrast, that darkness, put it in that spot, led your eye through the image. I love those things.
Yeah.
I kind of capture what's in front of me. I manipulate it a little bit, but that's feeding the artist. It gives me imagery that I feed on when I'm out someplace.
Can you feed the artist though? I mean, I keep going back to that. If you're struggling with trying to figure out what your thing is in photography, does it make sense to emulate until you can originate? I mean, should you fake it until you can make it, right? Or is that a detractor? Does that sour, like you were saying, Troy? You should put yourself in a sensory deprivation tank, right, and to let the real you come out. Or what if you don't know what that real you is and you're just getting into this? Does it make sense for you to, go in and say, well, hey, I like these kinds of photos. I'm going to try to make those kinds of photos and get proficient at it, and then go ahead and branch off? Or are you tainting and polluting your creativity by walking in someone else's footsteps?
Oh, go ahead, Troy.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think it's a little bit of both. We all have our own palette for whether it's food or music or photography, and I think if you can remove as much of the noise as possible, as much of the distracting elements, and realize this is what I like, this is what I like to photograph, and then go look at that work, go look at those types of things. I mean, Steve is very saturated in concert photography.
Yeah.
And I'm not as much. So I'm not looking at as much as he is. I'm looking at other things that I'm interested in. That helps me feed the artist. And whether you sort of deprive yourself of input for a time, or you're in an organization that focuses on the type of work that you like to do, I think that's healthy. As long as you can realize there's so much noise out there, try to stay away from the noise. It's actually detracting from your creativity, for me.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's noise. It's the creative noise, but it's also, like we were talking about in the beginning, it's the gear noise, right? It's easy to start chasing that ball of, what camera should I buy? Should I buy this one? Should I buy that one? What lens? What should I do this? Should I do that? Okay, which computer do I need? What software on that computer do I need? What sites should I be uploading to? Which social media platforms should I be most active on? All of them or just one? All these different. Which podcasts should I subscribe to?
Do I not watermark?
Yeah, exactly.
It goes.
Do I register? Do I not register?
Oh my God! Who's going to steal my work? Exactly. On the last episode, Martin Bailey kind of explained it in really good detail about how gear can really overwhelm us. And I thought it was so wonderful how he talked about how he's still using these older bodies to do his work. Right. It really is insignificant as long as you're out there creating. Go create.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things I would say is, if you're going to put yourself, taking it back to stretching your creativity and pushing that envelope, if you're going to push the envelope, but you're going to take feedback, which is the way you're going to improve, take feedback from people that matter, right? So as a concert photographer, there are landscape photographers that I love, and I love Frederick's work, right? Frederick hasn't really shot many concerts. So his critique of my images means something to me within the realm of what he shoots, right? Yeah. Ansel Adams critiquing my image would mean something to me because it's Ansel Adams, but the truth is he doesn't necessarily understand what I shoot. So find people that inspire you and put more, I'm not saying only get critique from them, just put the right amount of weight on where the feedback is coming from, right? And here's the other thing. If you post in a Flickr or a Facebook group and you say CNC welcome, right? Critiques and comment welcome. Don't expect everybody just to say great shot. I've had it where people say CNC welcome, and I do a critique of their shot, a small one, start with something good, something you can improve, and with something good. And the person literally answered, "Oh, I like it." Okay, well, if you like it,
really want to critique.
No, if you like it, move on. It's your shot. Right. It doesn't matter. It's your art. Make your own art. Right. And your question originally was, should you emulate? Is emulating okay? And I would say this very, very strongly. It's like the thing where I've wanted to give EXIF data on imagery. And I've had people on my show say, I don't want to share, or online say, I don't want to share EXIF data because if I tell you what my shutter, my f-stop, and my ISO were, my lens, you're just going to mimic me. And that's not right. You need to make your own art. And let's just all agree. Adam L. Makaya said this to me once. I totally agree with it. You don't own a copyright or a trademark on that exposure, right? If as a beginner, it helps this person understand where to start. And if copying you, if sounding like Led Zeppelin helps that lead singer get his voice out, he'll find his own voice in time.
Yeah.
But he's got to start somewhere.
But it's scary, though. I mean, the other side of that coin is this is a visual medium, and people are going to be looking at your work. It's not just you that's shooting in a vacuum chamber to get better. And if you emulate someone that has a distinctive style and you start posting that work, then you're like, oh, you're just a copycat of, that looks like Ansel Adams' shot of El Capitan. You know, you don't want to get tarred and
that'll happen one time.
And then you'll move on to something else.
Say,
right?
oh, I'm copying too much. and it will push them to find their own voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well,
all
you
a
hope
path, right? There's no destination that's immediate. It's a path.
Right.
You hope it does. I don't know that it always will. There's always going to be copycats, but I can tell you that, the rising tide lifts all boats, and protectivism doesn't work. It just brings everybody down. And there are so many people that are so passionate about this industry that if we help them, if we reach out to them, they're going to show us new ways of doing things. I'm in the wedding industry. It is super competitive. I have no secrets. I don't care because you can't shoot like me.
Yeah.
Even if you're just as good as me or better than me, there's many better than me. If we're standing in the same place, it's not the same. It's not the same shot.
Yeah.
And I was trying to very cleverly look up the gentleman that Steve interviewed that does the snowflakes. I was going to be clever and pretend I knew his name. I can't pull it out right now.
Don Komarechka.
That guy, yeah.
Oh,
The
Don.
amazing Don
Yeah.
Komarechka. Yeah.
Sorry, Don. I tried. It's the pressure of being on here.
Don is going to be on TWiP episode 513 with Sharky James, by the way.
Oh, cool.
You're having Sharky on too? Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he made a comment because Steve asked him, like he shares all his information, and aren't you afraid to do that? And he said, no, because if you're doing what I wrote in my book or whatever, then I'm already like 10 steps ahead. That is also inspiration. I shoot at a lot of venues. I post those images. If I see another photographer use my pose at that location, I'm like, well, that's the last time I use that. We're going somewhere else.
Right.
That's okay. That motivates me. That's a good way to do it.
All right, I'm gonna wrap up this segment, but I want to give both of you a chance to give final comments. We'll do final comments after we do a couple of resources where photographers can go to get inspiration. And Steve, I'll start with you first. Places where photographers can go after this, just to continue the conversation about inspiration.
Well, to continue just kind of being immersed in photography, I go to, because you mentioned Sharky, actually, Petapixel. I love Petapixel.
Mm-hmm.
F-Stoppers I go to. I mentioned the Scott Kelby blog earlier. The other thing is somebody mentioned that they look at art books, but from a photography point of view, not all books are just educational, right? Alan Hess, Rick Salmon, Scott Kelby, amazing authors of books that will inspire you, but also teach you.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to learn more about the legal end and copyright, go to Ed Greenberg and Jack Resnicki. But again, I cannot stress this enough. CreativeLive.com. Creative Live, to me, somebody in the chat room, Photography by Meredith and Joe, mentioned Zach Arias being on a blog. And one of the first things I ever watched on Creative Live was a Zach Arias class. And I bought the class.
Nice.
It's a brilliant business model. And again, when Kenna Klosterman, who's in Cuba right now doing her workshop, when she was on my show 2 episodes ago, I think, she gave me a code for behind the shot viewers and TWiP fans. The code is TWiP20, TWIP20, TWiP20. That'll get you 20% off on anything in your cart. So it's not one class, right? You could load the entire catalog from Creative Live in your shopping cart and get 20% off with TWiP20, but it has an expiration date of May 31st, and it has a limit of 2,500 people. The first 2,500, one per person, get that code. You'll get 20% off Creative Live, and I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of Creative Live.
Very cool. All right, Troy, what about you, man? Any sites or resources that you want to recommend?
I kind of live in a void. And
I'm getting that sense.
I do. I live in a bit of a creative void. I mean, I am so thankful to you and for Steve for showing me this podcasting world, because I really don't follow a lot. So I would say to those who are looking for those resources, listen to Frederick and Steve. They really know what they're talking about. I will say, and being part of the TWiP Pro community, that is the type of community that I am super excited to be about. And I know it sounds like a plug. It's not a plug. It's literally because I am a volunteer in an affiliation of PPA where we have roughly 130 members. And I am very involved in helping them get educated, answering questions, trying to mentor. Those are the things where I get most of my inspiration from. So the TWiP Pro community is like that for me. And the images people submit, I love that. Whatever that is for you, wherever you find that, I would say do that. And then for me to reach beyond what I'm capable of, Flern is one of my favorite Photoshop education sites, Aaron Nace. I just love watching that guy. I love the work that he does. If I need a Photoshop tip, I'm like, okay, is it on Flern? Yes, it's on. Great, I'll watch.
He makes it look so easy too. I hate him.
But it's but his stuff is. Let me just say too, there's a lot of really good people that show Photoshop tech, but his art is wonderful.
Yeah,
I love his art. And it's Julian Kost, jkost.com. She's an Adobe evangelist. I follow her as much for her art as for any type of technique she might show. She is an amazing artist. That is inspiration for me. Those are the people.
And a great teacher.
And a great teacher. Yeah, and a great teacher.
Yep. Good. Perfect.
I got to say, Trevor nailed it. I started typing it, but Trevor nailed it in the chat room.
What did he say?
I live in a void. That could be the quote of the night.
Yeah.
You got a show title. I live in the void.
I live in a void. Life in the void. By Troy. All right, cool, guys. All right, let's move on to the next segment. And chat room, remember, we are going to be doing the Q&A session right after this Picks of the Week segment. And you guys remember the Picks of the Week. That's a segment where you guys can pick anything you want to recommend to the TWiP listeners and watchers, in this case, as long as it is somehow related to photography, even tangentially related to photography. All right, Troy, I'm going to let you go first. What is your pick of the week?
Oh, no.
The teacher called on me. I'm still trying to finish All right, Steve,
He wants to pick Oakley.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I am ready. I had to look it up.
All right, there you go. Go
I'm
for
on
it.
vacation. Okay, I'm on vacation.
Yeah, whatever.
I mentioned Julian Kost. I use Capture One, and the reason that I thought that would be kind of cool is because the Phase One Capture One community, they have a huge set of tutorials that teach the Capture One software. I love Capture One, by the way. I use that for all my personal work. Haven't quite transitioned my wedding work yet because I have to put time into it, but they're tutorials. Even if you don't use Capture One, go watch their videos. They have some amazing photographers from all over the world. The work is stunning. I just love that. I just love to see that.
Love it. Perfect. All right.
Is that it? Did I have anything else?
Well, we need like 3 or 4. Are you ready?
Oh, I did. Oh, and
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You got to pick what we saw in Vegas. That was your other one.
Yeah, it was my other one. Luminaire software by Skylum, which used to be MacFun. We got to go to sort of a reveal for the new software for that. I've been playing with that quite a bit, and as software goes, and I know there's a lot out there, and I do play with them all. I'm impressed. I got a lot to go. I got a long ways to go with it. I got to play with it, but I like it, and I'm learning it. So that would be something that's kind of on the fringe, but download it, play with it. It might inspire you.
Love it. That's a good pick of the week.
That's what we need.
Perfect. Yeah. And Skylum. Do you know how to pronounce it?
Skylum.
LUM. Let's go with Skylum.
Yeah.
Formerly MacFun, but they obviously had to change their name because they are now not just on the Mac platform, thankfully.
Right. They're developing for the Windows platform. Yeah. And they've got some new stuff coming out that is going to be exciting. So keep an eye on them.
Very cool.
And that on Skylum, that's what excites me is they've got a DAM coming out, a digital asset manager, and we got a preview of it in Vegas at WPPI. And if it works the way they showed it, which nobody knows yet, but if it works the way they showed it, we could finally have a really nice DAM on the Mac. Good.
Well, we need it. All right, Steve, your turn, man. Pick of the week.
So for me, I like Instagram. I really love Twitter myself, but for imagery, I like Instagram. I really do. One of the problems with Instagram to me is just its limited access. Mm-hmm. There's no native iPad app. That drives me absolutely crazy. And doing everything on my phone is kind of a pain. But there is a website that lets me upload all my images in the resolution that I want, schedule them in advance. You can it used to be up until just recently with API changes from Instagram that you would schedule them. And what would happen is on your phone, you'd get a notice you have a post. You'd have to go into this app. I'll say the site in a second. You'd have to go into the app and say, okay, post now. It'd pop up a share sheet. You'd say, open it in Instagram, and you had to do it manually.
Yep.
As of recent changes, this website now supports automatically fully scheduling and publishing to Instagram from your desktop.
Really?
It's called, it's later.com, later.com. And when you go to Later, there's a free version that lets you do, I think it's 30 posts a month, something like that. If you want more than that, you pay, but it lets you save presets for captions. So I have a caption for my normal personal posts. I have a caption for behind the shot posts. I have a caption pre-saved for my concert posts that have all the hashtags I want in it, and then placeholders for me to fill in. You can create everything, crop everything, leave them normal. It'll show up on your phone, and if you want to, it will auto post. And there's a free version that does everything it can do.
Yeah.
Later.com.
All right.
I have a Margie that does that.
You have a what?
I have a Margie that does that.
Yeah, there's
See,
only
you
one
just
though.
You get a wife that does all your social media for you, and then you don't need any of that.
I need to do that. I need to up my game, apparently.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of upping your game, I have a pick this time around. So my pick is it's basically everything related, and it's an app. It's an online app called Feedly. Have you guys heard of that? Feedly? So,
yeah, Feedly.
Yeah, mm-hmm. So Feedly...
It's been around for a long time.
It's been around for a long time, but if you haven't looked at it recently, because I kind of fell out of the whole RSS feed game around the time when Google killed Google Reader. I just you know what? RSS, I'm not going to... We'll serve up RSS, obviously. A podcast is an RSS feed. But I stopped using readers because I was like, you know what? I had everything in Reader, and it just went away, so I'm done with it. So then when we revamped and restarted This Week in Photo, I found myself in the need to grok, again, a whole lot of news at the same time and understand what's hot, what's not, categorize it by whatever. And Feedly, as it stands today, we're recording this March 14th, 2018, it is fantastic. It is ridiculously cool in how you can organize and subcategorize a mountain of feeds and look at them as one group or as subgroups or organized by how popular that particular article is. You can do a million things. You can create newsletters for an internal team. For example, if we're recording this episode. If I wanted to say, hey, we're going to talk about these 3 topics, I can mark those in Feedly and send those to you guys as in a newsletter format. So, this week on TWiP, we're going to be talking about these things, guys, and send them out to the hosts that are going to be on that show. And it just goes on and on and on, all the different kind of things you can do in terms of you can highlight different paragraphs and share just that snippet with other people. And they've really taken the RSS feed concept to, and I hate the phrase to the next level, but they definitely pushed the boulder forward because it is now one of my go-to apps. I got very few apps in my tab bar, and it is one of those apps now because it is that valuable. So,
you're making my void very uncomfortable with all
living in a void.
Way too much tech invading my creative space. That's all I got to say.
Stay away from Feedly then,
Frederick, can I mention one thing?
Yeah.
Can I mention one other small pick here?
Absolutely.
At WPPI, Troy lives on this gear. And I've played with it. I hadn't really played with it a lot, but I got a really good introduction to it. It's in one of the episodes I put on Behind the Shot of a recap of WPPI. It's at the end. And that was, we stopped by the Spider camera holster booth. And again, Troy lives on this stuff.
True, I do, yeah.
Literally, he's got more Spider gear than anybody that I know.
It was on my belt. I just took it off my belt.
Yeah, if he goes to dinner with you with no cameras, he's got a Spider camera holster clip on his belt. I gotta say, in talking with the guy who runs Spider, Shy, there is some really cool, innovative stuff that company is doing. So if you're into carrying accessories for your camera gear, look at Spider.
So what's the deal with it? So just Troy, since you are the fanboy, what's the deal? Is it a clip system that you can run around like a gunslinger with your cameras? Or
it is, yeah. It's very sturdy. It's very supportive. I clip mine on my belt, but they make a waist belt. You can kneel and climb, and I climb trees with it. We shoot weddings. You can use 2 hands to work with it. On the bottom, I was going to grab my camera, but you won't be able to see it. On the bottom of the camera, I have the Arca Swiss plate. They make a really quick release plate that goes on there that has the pin. So it's very fast. So even I was just in Zion a few weeks ago, and we're out there shooting, and I'm like walking around shooting some casuals with my friends play, and I'm like, ooh, cool waterfall. Take the plate off, put it on my tripod. I can shoot, put it back on my hip.
Yeah,
I dig it. I think it's one of the greatest tools ever. And literally, and I know it sounds like, a plug for gear, and I'm not a big gear head. Well, okay, maybe I am.
I was just gonna say,
thank you.
It makes it easy. It gets my gear out of my way. We talked about, being creative. We talked about that. Anytime gear gets out of my way, I feel I can be more creative. So I can hold on to a tree and pull it out. Check it out. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, go look at their site. They even have a new thing that clips on like a what's this word I'm looking for? Backpack strap that can hold your camera, your mirrorless there. It can hold a water bottle, a flash, or a GoPro.
Oh, I have a discount code.
Yeah, what is it? You do?
I
Seriously?
do.
What is it?
I didn't know that.
Why didn't you ever tell me?
I don't like you.
Oh, okay.
It's IEPPV, the letter IE, P as in Paul, PV, S Pro.
And that'll give you IEPPV Pro. No spaces, no dashes.
No spaces, no dashes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. All one word, and it's a 20% discount.
Very
And it's spiderholster.com. I happen to have the sticker here, so I just looked it up.
I feel bad. I own no spider gear at all. And I just have
for what you shoot, it would be so good for you.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a Peak Design fanboy, right? So
okay.
I've got Peak Design bags and the Peak Design clips and all
camera
that.
strap, Peak Design camera strap.
There
right
you go.
There.
There you go.
I use them both.
Yeah.
I use them both.
Oh, yeah. See, you got too much tech over there. All right, guys. We're running long here. Let's go through our questions. We got a lot of questions in here. Christopher Berry, our community manager, it is hailing here right now. Just I was like, is there applause outside? It is hailing here in Sacramento.
So jealous.
Again, it's hailing. Oh my goodness. Okay. Anyway, Christopher Berry, the TWiP community manager, who's in Arizona, where presumably it's not hailing, has collated these questions for us. Thanks, Chris Berry. The first question is from Amy. So Amy Brooks says, what would Ansel say? And I think this is in reference to the first part of the conversation or our feature conversation on creativity. And she says, what would Ansel say? What would Brisson add to this conversation about creativity? So what do you guys think? Cartier-Bresson and Ansel Adams, how would you presume they stayed inspired about landscapes and street photography, respectively?
I think Ansel would love it. I mean, Ansel was one of the forerunners in pushing technology. I mean, he pushed his enlargers, he pushed his processing techniques. He used the red Retin-A filter to photograph El Capitan. Was it El Capitan? Yeah. The first time, and sort of changed this idea. This isn't what it looked like to my eye, but this is what it looked like to my vision.
Yeah.
I think that he would embrace this. I would hope he would embrace this, but I think he would.
Yeah.
He was always pushing technology that he had.
Yeah. He would use the right tool for the right job, right? So that's what we all do. You're going to use whatever is the best thing to do within the constraints of your budget. The best that your money can buy to do the best job that you can do, right? That's always the triangulation of how you do things. Steve, what about you? You any comments on that?
I really don't think budget has anything to do with it. I think both of them, I think any of the classic masters would say what we've been talking about. Push yourself, right? Mm-hmm. If there's a new technology, give it a shot. If it doesn't work, that's okay. If shooting from a street photography point of view, shoot from a different angle, think differently, see differently. Mm-hmm. Light is light, but Troy made the comment earlier today, which is one of my favorite things. I can be standing in the photo pit shooting the same band as the guy next to me, and my shot doesn't look anything like him. So this whole argument of everybody shot the Eiffel Tower, everybody's taken that shot, and it's true. Those photos exist. So just find it. Don't say I don't want to shoot the Eiffel Tower. It's going to look the same. No, figure out a way to make it look different, or at least try. If it can't be done, it can't be done. But try. And I think all the masters would say, just try to look at something different. And Good Dog mentioned, which is so true. Ansel was a master in the darkroom. He wasn't just a master behind the camera.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other half of it, right? The inspiration behind the camera, and then also the execution of the image in post-production, right? So
Well, look up,
Ansel's darkroom is our Capture One Lightroom Photoshop, right?
Yeah. Right. Go do a Google search for Moonrise over Hernandez, and try to find the history of the evolution of that image. How many times that Ansel changed that image over time? Maybe his vision changed, maybe the technology changed. We get his vision closer, but it's amazing to see his original prints and what happened over time and how they changed. And that's one of the examples that I would say he would embrace this.
Moonrise, what's it called? Moonrise over Hernandez, right?
Don't tell me you don't know what that image is.
I do. I didn't know the name of it. I'm sorry, but
Moonrise over Hernandez. Yeah.
I pulled it up, and now
and Frederick does a quick recovery.
I know the shot. I actually have the original shot in my living room. I just didn't want to brag about it.
It's beautiful. But what I have found in teaching classes is people need to see where that came from over time. He reprinted it and reprinted it and got better and got, different technology, maybe built a different enlarger, modified it. And he modified the heck out of that negative and modified the way he printed that image. So it goes to show that.
Which is another inspiration thing.
Yeah.
The fact that you took a shot doesn't mean the shot's done. It doesn't mean even when you do it in post, it's done. It may be the day you were there was the wrong day. Go back and shoot it again. Don't just think I've already shot that. It can't be done again.
Yeah, it's interesting. By the way, guys, I have that shot up on the screen now that we were talking to it. So, because I have the power to do that. All right, let's move on to the next question here, and that is from, where are we? Jerry Wong. So Jerry, I think we answered this question already. He says, "Isn't Canon planning to launch a full-frame mirrorless soon?" And we said we don't know. It's a rumor, but hopefully. Ruth Happel, welcome Ruth. Ruth says, "I find it interesting that some of the most innovative features are coming out in the Micro Four Third or in the 4/3 space. I prefer the quality of Nikon, Canon, and Sony, but Panasonic and Olympus have more interesting features." So that's more of a statement than a question. And Troy, you agree with that? I think you mentioned something about Micro Four Thirds being superior, especially on the Panasonic side, to all other cameras in existence, right? So. I thought I heard you say that.
I would like to take this opportunity that if any Sony execs out there are listening, which I'm sure they all are, because our opinion is so valid to them,
right?
That up into the A7R Mark II, there was software that you could get for these camera bodies, and when they went to the 3, they pulled that software. And I think that was a huge mistake, because that was the ability to push the technology further than just the physical gear. And I'm hoping they're listening. Yeah.
Hey, here's a really good one.
Ruth had another question in the chat that I thought was kind of interesting.
Oh, where did I miss it? Where is it?
No. You just probably haven't gotten that far yet. But do you feel like landscape shots are being forced into a certain prototype based on what's popular on social media, right? That things are starting to look the same.
Yeah, all Milky Way shots have a guy standing in it with a headlight and a light.
Exactly.
Well, that's across genres, though. I mean, there's like hero images in every genre. Like, oh, I've learned how to do long exposures. Therefore, now you must go shoot a pier that's going out into a body of water with a neutral density and with a 20-second exposure. Right? It's a rite of passage, it feels like. And same with Milky Way.
Let's face it, if we're all standing on a beautiful lake in a mountainscape and there's a pier, we're going to do that shot.
I'm doing it. I don't care. I don't care what you say. I'm going to do it. So... yeah. Okay, let's move on. Chris Berry has a question in here from him, I think. He says, "Are there any photography apps that structure challenges that help you stretch your creativity? Maybe there's a book or an app or channel to use some structure to guide someone in and out of a rut. Something to help break the patterns." That is very interesting. Right. So a book or some sort of resource that would assume a certain level of competency photographically and then guide you out of it, almost like a photographic therapist. Hey, trademark phototherapy. There you go. Done.
Somebody go buy phototherapy.com.
It's done.
Yeah. Photoceuticals. There you go. Right there. Okay, and Trevor Panaki has a question in here. He says, for a while, people would shoot digital for serious work, but for exhibitions and galleries would print from film. Does film still have a foothold in fine artwork? Guys, what do you think?
Coming from a film background, as I know that you do, Frederick, film is unique in that it requires a level of discipline in order for you to create an accurate image. What I think is happening today, and this is just my observation, is that you get somebody that goes out and shoots film and then they scan it and then they try to print it. And to me, you're killing the quality of the film. In order to really embrace film, you need to put it in an enlarger. You need to let the light scatter through the emulsion, landing on a piece of paper that you're printing by hand. To answer your question, does film still have a foothold in fine art? I think it does, but I think that some people are doing it because it's nostalgic. It's like listening to records again. It's like, ooh, that's really cool. It has its place, but those of you that are shooting film, try that. Try not scanning it and taking it and putting it in larger and standing in a dark room for 17 hours and make one print that you can't
repeat, right? You can't repeat. Even from print to print, you can't repeat. You can't make a print exactly like print number 1 on print number 20 in the same box of paper, because your chemistry changes, everything changes over time. So part of the magic of digital is being repeatable.
So pure film to print, I think it's wonderful. Go do that. That's amazing. Leave the scanning part out of it. I think that's kind of cheating.
Unless you're doing it because you like to build ships in a bottle, right? Some people just want to go through the flogging process of shooting and processing and printing film, which is fine. If you
the discipline is amazing. When I started shooting weddings, I shot Hasselblad, and every time I pulled that trigger, it cost me $1. Yeah. Every time. Whether I wanted it to or not, it cost me $1 to get it printed. So you were very selective on how many times you push that button. Let me tell you, there is a lot of education in that. I think that is amazing. I think everybody should get to shoot film at some point or another.
Ruth has a question. She says, are you only inspired by photography, or does painting and other art inform your photo techniques? Yeah, because we haven't mentioned any other kind of art.
I did.
Oh, you did?
You mentioned painting, but I would say, anything that feeds your hunger for inspiration is the wrong word here. Yeah. Anything that stimulates your mind, right? It could be a statue in the center of town. We've all walked by and seen art in the middle of a city square and gone, how much did they pay for that?
Yeah. Hey, right. You and I walking around at WPPI, we went over and saw that giant,
the Burning Man statue.
We're like, holy crap. We're walking around this thing and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything can inspire you. And, what I find fascinating is people who do sculpture, people who do, acrylic or oil painting, people who do whatever their genre of artwork is, fine furniture, right? They all have elements of artistic design, industrial design in computers or phones, or they all have things that can inspire and educate you in what you do. Everything can.
Yeah, I would say
movie posters.
Yeah.
I would say even non-photographic creative techniques can inspire you. If I've done a lot of stuff that has fire and explosives and things like that in it. That was because I was building furniture.
Burning
and I saw this and I thought that was really cool. My daughter and I do pottery. We were taking a pottery class together. We've been doing it for 6 or 8 months now. And it's amazing to sit and work with your hands. It sort of frees that creative bond in your brain. And then when I sit down in front of the computer and I got to edit, I feel a little bit more relaxed, and maybe the creative juices flow a little bit more.
I like that. That's cool. Get outside of your box and get outside of your discipline, not only your genre, but instead of genre hopping, maybe even art form hopping for a little bit to spark your inspiration.
I agree. Yeah.
Chris Berry has another question in here. He says, when was your last rut? How long did it last? And what did you do to get out of it? And what did you learn from it? I don't know, Troy, you said you have one every 7 years, right? Where are you on that cycle? Are you a year 6 or 1?
Wow.
Yeah.
My last rut was definitely a handful of years ago. And it was sort of, I don't know if you're a wedding photographer right now, the rustic is in, and I'm excited by that, because before that it was the beach and it was clean, and it was killing me going to the beach again. I mean, I was over it, and you get so frustrated creatively. And then everybody started asking to go to a park, and that was really a big deal to me, and that helped me sort of break out of that, because I had to shoot different. I had props, and I had trees, and I had barns, and I had cars, just shooting in someplace totally different. So that was how I got out of that. That sort of happened before I switched to digital. Digital saved me. I mean, I was so frustrated at the end of my film age, and then my lab decided that they couldn't compete and make print film anymore. So I had to go to digital. And little did I know that going to digital would force me to be creative and really get me out of my rut, because I had to sort of kind of relearn the gear all over again.
Yeah. What about you, Steve?
For me, doing what I shoot, it was slightly different in that there were times that something would happen during a show. We only usually get to shoot three songs from the pit. And there were things that would happen during a show that would cause me to either get a shot I wasn't happy with, or to miss a shot. A singer would come up right in my face and point at me or smile at me, and lean at the camera. And I have two bodies, a 70 to 200 and a 24 to 70, and I'd grab it, but it just wasn't wide enough. And so now I always carry, I just bought the 16 to 35 Mark III, which I used a ton last week at Self Help Festival. If you follow me online, you'll see I'm posting a bunch of these wide shots. I also bought a Sigma 15 millimeter, not an Art Series 14 or something, just a regular 16, Sigma 15 millimeter. And that made it so that when those people jumped in front of me, I could get shots that I clearly could see in my head. I knew the shot I wanted, but I was hitting a roadblock in my gear.
Yeah.
And that kind of stimulated me more to, okay, now I'm getting them, but now that I'm getting them, I need to do X, Y, Z to make them better. That type of thing works for me. So I opened up the window that I could shoot through to be able to get what I saw in my head.
I will add that when the Sony gear started to become more prevalent, that starting to play with that was really good for me to kind of still stay in the gear, because that was a completely different way of working.
Mm-hmm.
And that was inspirational. That motivated me to sit down and read a camera manual again, and figure out what settings I wanted, what buttons I wanted to configure. That helped. I think that helped a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We've got one more question, gentlemen. And that's from Ruth Happel. This is a really good question to end on. Thanks, Ruth. So this one, she says, do you feel social media like Instagram is driving the, I can't even pronounce this word, homogeneity? I never use this word in a sentence. In genres like landscape, because of the desire to get tons of likes based on what is popular. So are likes driving what people shoot more than just pure creativity? And if so, how do you combat that? Or should we combat that? What do you think, Steve? You're nodding your head yes.
I think likes are driving everything online right now with social media. People, you look at studies at how often people are on their phone, and it's somewhat scary because they just want, did somebody like my phone vibrated? I think, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. Wanting feedback on your images is great. Liking what you shot because other people like it is great. Wanting feedback purely because it's good feedback is a false sense of security.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Agreed.
post for the likes.
Yeah.
Likes are great. Likes boost your ego. But at some point, if you really want to, if you go to bed at night and go, I got 100 likes tonight, but in your head, that's just because people didn't have the guts or the wherewithal to say, I like it, but right. You really want to improve your photography, then get past the ego, right? Get some likes, let those feed yourself, let those feed your self-esteem, but then check that self-esteem at the door. Let somebody rip you up and down, be mad at them for doing it, and then read it again and learn from it.
Troy, I know you know nothing about social media, so do you want to go grab Margie and bring her on to answer us?
Oh my God, she couldn't do it. She'd be so nervous.
What do you think? What do you think? So is this a like-driven economy?
It is, and unfortunately, Instagram and Twitter and those type of environments, that's not reality. That's not the real world. That what you see is what is pervasive. That doesn't mean that that's for me. That doesn't what brides want to buy. That's what brides want. If you go and look at my work, you will not see soft, dreamy, backlit, sunlit, overexposed. You're not going to see any of that because that's not what I like. That's not what I shoot. Although it's very prevalent online. And new photographers that come in that don't have an established base or an established business or a confidence in their own work, they're going to copy that. Yeah. And that makes me sad because I think individual creativism, did I say that right? Individual creatism is sort of, it's lacking because of social media, and it's telling people what you should shoot as opposed to enter your void, go shoot what you're passionate about, and then come out. And everybody's going to be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah. Everybody else is over here beating a drum and you decide to play a trumpet. Are you crazy? No. Yeah. Everybody's going to turn their head and go, oh, a new sound
with trumpet.
Right. Something different. Yeah, but it takes a lot of courage and strength to break from that school of fish, though, right? You're swimming comfortably in the school of fish.
People say it does. People act like and think in their head that it does. But they still post them on Facebook. That takes, a discipline and getting outside of yourself to post them on online media and hope that you get likes.
Yeah.
It's not as hard as people. It's so easy for us to say, oh, it's so hard, I can't do it. Yes, you can. You hit send.
Yeah. Go create work that is unique to you, not to the stream and not to what's out there. And people will gravitate to you because they will appreciate the quality of
not you
providing. Well, not me, right? Not me or you, probably Frederick.
Right.
Yeah,
Frederick.
Not me either.
They love Frederick.
Well,
they love Frederick.
There's that, but still, you know what I say on top of all this stuff, though, guys. Like what we've missed on much of this conversation, and we're going to wrap it up here. So thanks for all the folks hanging in there with us. Is we've been talking about image, like inspiration, shooting images. We talked a lot about gear in the beginning for the first 25 minutes. But we haven't talked much about storytelling and the narrative behind images and using a narrative behind your imagery, even on an ongoing basis to drive your creativity. For example, putting on the photojournalist hat, you say, Troy, say you're a photojournalist and you're like, hey, I'm going to drive up the coast to through the valley and through Sacramento, and I'm going to document the homelessness that I see along the way, and I'm going to make that an ongoing project. I'm going to document homelessness down in my area in Sacramento and get creative telling the story, and maybe even build a series of images that you take of each person that's in that situation, right? And then you branch out from that because from my standpoint, I don't think everything is all about photography. I think I've been saying this phrase for years. I think we are multimediagraphers, where photography is just one of the ways we capture data, but we also write. We can also write to go along with our images. So you can create an image. Like Troy, one of your images on spicyjello.com, you could take one of those images and write a narrative about it, where it might be a short paragraph that says, I saw butterfly wings in this explosion and it made me think of this situation, whatever. And you tie what's in your mind's eye to the image and to the viewer. So now the viewer, whenever they see that image, they're going to think butterfly, so you can hit things on various different sides. Everything doesn't have to be a nail. Just because you're a hammer, it could be different. It could be different things. You could shoot, and the other thing I tell people all the time is like, it's not, sometimes photography or a still photograph isn't the best way to tell a story. If you're moving down that story route, sometimes a still image isn't the best way to tell it. Sometimes it's motion. Sometimes it's audio. Sometimes it's a still with some ambient sound behind it. Right? You're taking a picture of a guy that got his drone stuck in the tree. You want to put the drone in the tree and have blowing wind or
throwing water at it. Yeah.
That's inside
God,
joke.
we got so far through the program.
You thought you were getting away. And by the way, I just want to toss this out before somebody accidentally goes to spicyjello.com and ends up, for all we know, it being something weird. I don't think you actually own spicyjello.com. That's your handle on Instagram.
Oh, it's not. You don't have spicyjello.com, Troy? I thought you owned that.
I do.
Yeah, he owns it.
Oh, you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Of course.
Yeah, I've
Good.
been there. Yeah.
Better safe than sorry.
See, you call yourself friends, you know. You
Right.
Where's your website at again? Oh, no. So this is cool. So anyway, just to wrap it up, yeah, you don't always have to use one medium to tell a story, but I would just overlay over this conversation that telling stories is a really good way to spark your creativity instead of like, in other words, telling a story is kind of like beginning with the end in mind. You know, I used to write short stories when I was a kid, short little science fiction stories. And I'm starting to think, man, if I knew what I knew now, then I would write those stories and then try to create something to go along with those stories, to sort of illustrate those stories. That would be fun, right? So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. We're at the end of the show, guys. Let's wrap this up real quick. Steve Brazill, where should people go to connect with you online and hear those sultry tones of that radio voice?
The radio. I can't believe I just did that in person.
Yes, you did.
Okay. On Instagram and Twitter, it's stevebrazill.com. Steve Brazill, at Steve Brazill. It's like Brazil, but 2 L's. And then on Facebook, it's Steve Brazill Photography. But also the easy place to find me is go to thisweekinphoto.com, click the link for Behind the Shot. My podcast is there. I welcome any reviews you do on iTunes. I welcome any feedback, any guest suggestions. There's a contact form there, and I read everything that gets sent. And yeah, that's about it. Awesome. Oh, and I've got a new interview coming out. Somebody, Shout About It UK, just interviewed me, and I think that comes out today.
Wonderful. Very cool. All right. Troy, what about you, man?
My wedding work is imageryconcepts.com. You can go stalk me there. And my fine art work is spicyjello.com. But at spicyjello on Instagram is probably where I post more of my creative and inspirational stuff that I do that isn't my wedding work.
Wonderful. All right, guys, you rock. Thanks for sticking in there for this almost 2 hour long This Week in Photo. Steve warned you at the beginning, Troy, that it could go this long, and he was right. He was absolutely exactly. All right. So we're at the end of this show, folks. Remember, you can connect with This Week in Photo at thisweekinphoto.com. If you want to subscribe to our podcast, head over to thisweekinphoto.com/subscribe. And also, the brand new TWiP Pro community is a buzz, and I'm very happy with how that's going. So if you want to jump in there and put your feet in the water and see how that's going, just head over to TWiPPro.com. That's TWiPPRO.com. And with that, it's time to take that lens cap off. This is TWiP.